is possible, not guaranteed. It will only be made if we keep marching on. The fight to ratify the ERA goes on, with over 120 House lawmakers now pressuring President Biden to take action. They want the president to direct the nation's archivist to certify the ratification of the ERA and then publish what would be the 28th Amendment. It's a move that would finally enshrine gender equality in the Constitution. Legal pushback from Republicans seems inevitable, but with a radical anti-democratic administration days away from taking power, isn't it the perfect time for President Biden to take aggressive action? Joining me now is Virginia Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan. Congresswoman, always good to see you. You were in Virginia State Senate when 4 years ago the Commonwealth became the 38th and final state needed to ratify the ERA. Why is it so important that President Biden enshrine the ERA into our Constitution?
Well, first of all, it would cement his legacy as a fighter for women's equality, going back to his days in the Senate when he passed the Violence Against Women Act. He's been a champion for reproductive freedom. And now he can finish the job that was started over a century ago, that Virginia finished by becoming the 38th state to ratify the ERA. And now he can make sure that it is finally published.
The text of Section 1 of that amendment, or proposed amendment, would say that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. What kind of massive roadblock would this serve against Republican attacks on not only abortion rights, but also LGBTQ+ rights?
Well, first of all, like you said, it would ensure that equality under the law finally applies to women, finally applies to prevent gender discrimination. Women were not included in the Constitution when it was first written. And it is time for us to put it in the sequel by putting the Equal Rights Amendment in the Constitution. It would prohibit laws that, like restrictions on abortion, that only apply to one gender. It would prohibit any gender discrimination at all against anyone for any reason. And it is past time that we do it.
So there are critics that we have to acknowledge that are saying that this amendment would face legal pushback and fail because enough states didn't ratify it in time to meet a congressionally mandated deadline. But that criticism is based on an Office of Legal Counsel opinion. And people like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand are saying, you know what, it's okay to go ahead and do this, President Biden. Your thoughts on the criticism that is being kind of flung towards you guys trying to get this ERA enshrined?
Well, first of all, the so-called deadline itself is unconstitutional. Nothing in the Constitution authorizes Congress to put any additional requirements on constitutional amendments other than what's in the Constitution itself. And federal law says that once an amendment meets the requirements of the Constitution, which does not include any deadline, it shall be published. The archivist certified the ratifications of Illinois and Nevada after this so-called deadline, and he should also ratify the certification of Virginia. This should have happened 2 years ago under the terms of the Constitution. And just because someone might file a lawsuit, if that were a reason not to publish an amendment, there would be no amendments to the Constitution at all, because all of them have been litigated. So the requirements have been met. The states have done their job. The people have spoken. It is time for the president to cement his legacy and order that the ERA be published as the 28th Amendment.
I'm glad, Congresswoman, you bring up the fact that the people have spoken. There's a 2022 Pew Research Center poll. It found that 78% of Americans believe that the ERA should be a part of the United States Constitution. What kind of broad support are you seeing and you hearing being a part of the caucus, because you're co-chairing the caucus, to be able to get this into the 28th Amendment?
I see broad support. I see across party lines, gender lines, generational lines. You know, when I led the fight in Virginia, it was part of a multi-generational coalition of women doing it. And what we found then was a lot of people thought the ERA was already the law, and were like, they couldn't fathom the fact that it wasn't. And that's why it is so popular, is because people believe that you should not have discrimination on the basis of sex. It is past time that we pay attention to what Abigail Adams said to her husband when he went to the Constitutional Convention, and remember the ladies and give us equality under the law and make we, the people of this government, apply to everybody.
I love that. Remember the ladies. Well, you guys are loud, and we're hearing you. So, Virginia Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, thanks for your advocacy. Thanks for being here, and Happy New Year. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up next, the 51st state, why Donald Trump's musings about annexing Canada and buying Greenland should not be dismissed as typical Trump trolling. Plus, the blame game. Russian President Vladimir Putin is apologizing, kind of, for the deadly Azerbaijan